My idea for our city is to build what I call a caring economy, where we have love and respect for everyone and our planet. And I think we can do this. I think we have to move away from the old model of having a mean and cruel economy that's based on cheap labor and low taxes. I know it's not popular with a lot of people, but I feel that we have to push for raising taxes, especially on the rich. And I know that it's hard for the city to accomplish that, but we have to push the federal and provincial representatives to do that too. And we have to raise standards for labor. It's just we can't say that we care about our people if we're asking them to go to work for less than a living wage. When our minimum wage is far less than what a living wage is, it's a cruel economy. My priorities are uh, having more affordable housing, and some of that will have to be public housing. And I also hold as a priority free transit. But before want the city to move and transition into a free transit situation, we have to take care of the homelessness problem because until we do that, a free bus just becomes a shelter. And you can't blame people. It's especially in the winter. It's warm and it's safe, but it's not really a shelter. If they had a better place to go, they wouldn't be going onto the bus. So part of my plan, uh, long range for the city, is is to have more community services in every community. I don't want to see this thing where we have two or three big warehouses to deal with people that have housing problems or homelessness problems. I want to see us move to having a little tiny shelter in every community. Like we have a community hall, that's all right now. We have a community hall where rich people can go and rent it and have events, but there's not enough spaces, free spaces for people who don't have a lot of money to gather and talk about what's important to us. So I want to have the city move to the 15-minute neighborhood, which includes not only the commercial services they need, but the four basic things that people in need. They need shelter, they need food, they need health care, and they need education. So I want to see for education by the community hall a little library with some computer terminals that's open 24 hours a day. I want to see a medical clinic with a nurse and a doctor that has three shifts a day with people, so it's always staffed with a doctor and a nurse. I want to see a soup kitchen, the same thing that's 24 hours a day, just a few people staffing it, and for the um, shelter part, I want like 4, 6, 8 bed shelter or something like that in every community with two staff 24 hours a day, and this staff's job is to be transitioning those people into more permanent housing so that the shelter's never full and the people that are there are just temporarily there while they're being finding better housing for them. My position on public-private partnerships is very clear. I'm totally against them. I think it's ridiculous and it's unfortunate that the city is in a position where we're not allowed to borrow money. So we have that's one way we can finance big projects. But I'm totally against it. I think that it's selling out monopoly services to a select few people to profit from, and I'm totally against it. Just it goes against everything I believe in, and I'm ashamed that our city has been privatizing so many things. Well, my priorities for transit and transportation in the city is that we have to become more organized about how we travel and why we travel and where we travel. Like uh, we're facing a climate emergency, and a big part of the emissions that we produce comes from transportation. And um, I feel like we could just be more organized. Like having the 15-minute neighborhood means people are going to be driving less. if we have schools in our own neighborhood so their children don't have to be driven to school. I've heard that 30% of the traveling we do in our cars is to take kids to and from school. So we just have to be more organized, I think, so that we burn less. Like half of the solution to the climate crisis is or the emergency is finding new techie innovations that will help, so forth and so on, and carbon capture and hydrogen and whatever, and that allow us to keep on burning too much. But one thing that'll help us that we don't hear a lot of talk about it to burn less. The burning less is the goal for the climate emergency response. Burn less in every way imaginable. But just traveling less is burning less. So if we're more organized, we don't have to drive so far to take our kids to school to get the things we want. I mean, it's hard. The hard thing is if you have a spread out community of friends, then you do have to travel to get together. But a lot of the services and things we need, it's so disorganized. Like why do we have a painter in St. Albert working in Meadowlark and a painter in Meadowlark working in Millwoods? It's because it's disorganized. We need like an app that can say, oh, this kind of work needs to be done in our neighborhood. Who are the workers that live in our neighborhood that can do it, that put them together, right? So that we don't have all this extraneous travel. It's just really a function of disorganization. Absolutely do not support the changes that the UCP government has brought into our campaign financing laws. However, I'm of a different mind than most people on this issue. I feel that the solution doesn't lie in trying to have the best rules and laws to regulate uh, how money can be raised and spent in election campaigns. Uh, in a perfect world and in the future, I hope we have publicly financed elections, and then it'll just be no can't people asking for donations. But I feel in the long run, the solution is is uh, to like have publicly financed elections, but also to provide a service, communication service that's not financed with advertising. Because when we're locked in right now to use commercial systems all the time to communicate. Like right now, we're not. This is more direct, but most people communicate through the internet on Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, TikTok, all this and that. They're using foreign corporations to talk to somebody down the street, and the foreign corporation is selling your attention to whoever has the most money. And so when we have money in politics like we do today, then there's a big force of influence coming from money to try to manipulate the way the voters are going to cast their ballot. So to get away from that, I think we have to invest in having our own public library that does the job of Google, that does the job of Facebook, that does the job of Twitter. Like we need to have a public platform, publicly financed with no advertising on it. Then we can communicate freely without being influenced by the force of money in our communications. So, uh, but in the short run, I'm doing my protest campaign. I like to call it a quest, but everybody insists on calling it a campaign of taking no donations. I'm not asking anyone for donations. I'm self-financed. I'm going to try to cooperate in the spirit of facing a climate emergency and not be wasteful with all these plastic signs, paper brochures. I want to communicate from my own platform, my own website, say this is my platform, this is what I stand for, and this is how you get a hold of me. Phone me at my phone number or email me or come over to the office. I'm not dealing with people all around the world. I'm dealing with people in my own city, and I'm accessible. I don't need to communicate through foreign private um, platforms that put uh, profits before people. I plan to address housing and homelessness is first off to be totally partisan in right now during the federal election we're having and saying we need to have a federal government that's going to give our city the funding we need to house the homeless and to have affordable housing. We don't have we don't have the jurisdiction to raise taxes on the rich through income tax um, or corporate tax. We don't have that lever to pull, but the federal government does. And so I'm standing up and saying, hey, the conservatives and the liberals for 40 years have been lowering taxes, cutting revenue, and not keeping services up to snuff. It's got to stop. We have to stop this race to the bottom. We don't want to get to the bottom where we have like no revenue. And I wanted to start moving the taxes to go up. It's not popular. Nobody else that's running for city council is saying this, that we have to speak up for raising taxes. But that's why this time, during a federal election, as a municipal candidate, I'm saying, everybody, we got to roll up our sleeves and get out there and help our local NDP candidates win seats so we can have a majority the first NDP government in Canada with Jagmeet Singh as Prime Minister. My priority is to address the fiscal arrangement between the city and the province. This is the same as what I was saying about our relationship with the federal government. We need to have a progressive government in the province that's willing to fund our programs. It's just not in the interest of Edmontonians' future to have our university like decimated by a rogue government that thinks that they're doing some kind of favor to us by balancing a book, while they destroy our education system. We need an educated workforce, like highly educated workforce, to go into the world of the future. So I feel like it would be fine the way it is as long as we had like better government and better provincial government. It's okay to have to depend on the provincial government. I don't want the city, to be messing around with trying to collect taxes on income and things like that. Like that's fine. That's a job for the larger orders of government. But we need governments that are going to understand and care about the people in the city, and that it's the city's job to deliver services, and we need the funding from them. There's several things, but one thing I'd like to touch on right away is a voter incentive program. The turnout in the last civic election in Edmonton was 32%, and it's not very good, and it doesn't speak to us having a very strong democracy. In Australia, they fine people if they don't vote, and they have a much better turnout. But my idea is that instead of fining people, we should reward people for voting. So the way that, like, I pledged to the voters of Edmonton that if I'm elected the mayor to be your next mayor, I will push city council to bring in a voter incentive program and I'll push them to push the federal government to fund it by taxing the super rich. Now, the way this program will work is you go to cast your ballot, you mark your ballot, you put it into the ballot box, and then an agent of the returning officer hands you $1,000 cash. Now, when I say this, people like roll their eyes and they laugh and everything like this, because it sounds so crazy, but it's not crazy at all. It's like it really makes a lot of sense if you sit down and think about it. Like, what will this accomplish? Three things. Number one, it's going to get 99% turnout at the polls. Number two, a good percentage of those people that never voted that are now going to go out and vote are going to now take some time to check out who the candidates are, who their choices are, because they're going to vote, so they're going to obviously want to make the best choice for themselves. So we're going to have more engagement from the voters, more voters. And then the third thing is, well, of course, the people at Public Interest Alberta are well aware of this, and a lot of people are. We have like this giant wealth gap in our society that keeps growing and growing. And it's ridiculous. We have people suffering that don't need to be suffering just because we're choked from funds because there's this big wealth gap. So the voter incentive program is going to take funds from the richest of the rich, probably like I would try to take it from not the 1%, but the 0.01%. And then they're going to spread it out to almost everyone. So it's going to be a step in shrinking that wealth gap. They're voting with love in their hearts. They're voting with love in their hearts. Thank you very much, everyone.